Hello and welcome back. I'm Natalie MacDonald and you're joining me for Sydney Direct. Now this week I was down in Melbourne catching up with the boys at IG Markets. Finishing up this series, I've got Stan Shamu discussing RBA. Stan, thank you so much for letting us into your offices today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so first things first, a no change was expected from the RBA last week at the interest rate decision meeting. However, was it surprising almost at the lack of housing market dialogue, given really the emphasis on this in recent weeks?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the market was actually expecting to hear a bit more about the property space. I think that, along with the Aussie dollar, were the key highlights for the statement. But unfortunately, I think for the market, it actually turned out to be something that was a little bit positive because Australia is very dependent on the property market. And as an investment tool, it really does seem like they should not be looking to control it at the moment and just let market forces remain at play. I think that the main thing from this whole property debacle is that perhaps the key ways in which they can start to curb the excessive property demand is probably more towards the lending issues and, of course, getting banks to really limit or clamp down on exactly how much funding is needed for any purchases of property to actually get involved. And, of course, this is negative for the banks and ultimately will have a negative impact on the rest of the market. So whilst nothing was mentioned, I think in a way it was quite fortunate that the RBA didn't say anything about property.
Well, how does this tie in then? Do we have lesser expectations now of anti-bubble policies and what really could they entail?
I think the initial stage was probably jawboning this whole situation. And of course, once the nerves have settled into investors and of course they stay away from the market a little bit, perhaps it will slow down the price rises. So for example, if this situation leads to less price growth over the next few months, maybe they could actually continue to stay a bit on the sidelines on the issue. But of course, if property prices continue to accelerate, then maybe they might look at lending curbs, of which that's when we'll start to see a real pullback in the property market. But for now, I think they will leave the situation as is and try and assess it from the sidelines and see how it plays out.
We're now in 13 months of rate stability, the longest time of rate stability actually, one of the longest since 1990. Can we start to eye up a hike next year, for example?
I don't think so at the moment. I think whilst markets have been talking about a potential rate hike towards the back end of next year, I think there is still more of a probability that we'll actually see a rate cut than a rate hike. I think the swaps market's currently pricing in about 7 basis points worth of cuts over the next 12 months. And I think it's actually more likely the RBA will cut than hike rates. And the only thing that's probably stopping them from doing so at the moment is the recent rise in the property market. And of course, they don't want to risk creating asset bubbles, particularly in the property market. So with that in mind, I don't think a hike is anywhere near down the road. I think the economy here is still in a very tough position. And this coupled with the fact that the US is already unwinding its quantitative easing program. And of course, we're seeing a big slowdown in global growth. Then the RBA will have to be very cautious on that front.
Stan, thank you very much for your comments today. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for coming in.
That was Stan Shamu there of IG Markets. Thanks very much to the guys there for their comments. And thank you viewers very much for watching. Don't forget, next week we do have those inflation figures and the RBA policy meeting minutes. So do stay tuned for that. For now though, goodbye.